made up of men who were otherwise ineligible to fight, often because of their age. By the end of June 1940, almost 1.5 million volunteers had signed up. But there were few weapons with which to arm them. Hitler, meanwhile, was getting on with his invasion plans, codenamed Operation Sea Lion. Some 20 divisions would be landed on a broad front along England's south coast. Barges were gathered from all over northwest Europe. These were hurriedly converted into makeshift landing craft. Troops were trained for beach landings. But for all Hitler's bravado, those panning Sea Lion were one. Hitler might dismiss the English Channel as just another river to be crossed. But Britain's navy was still the largest in the world. It might be stretched thin by its worldwide commitments, but the Royal Navy's home fleet far outnumbered the German Navy. The German naval chief, Admiral Erich Raeder, had no confidence that he could seize control of the English Channel for long enough to get the army across. But the Germans did have one area of apparent massive superiority. The Luftwaffe far outnumbered Britain's Royal Air Force. The Luftwaffe's commander, Hermann Göring, had little doubt that he could establish air control over the channel long enough for Sea Lion to take place. On July the 10th, the Luftwaffe began attacking shipping in the channel. In response, the British had two of the most outstanding of the new breed of single-engine, multi-gun monoplanes. The Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane. The Spitfire was slightly faster and more agile than its German rival, the Messerschmitt Bf 109, which escorted the German bombers. It would be used to intercept these. The Hurricane would prove a lethal bomber kill. But in July 1940, Air Vice Marshal Hugh Dowding, the head of Fighter Command, had less than 700 fighters. Against them were 2,600 German fighters and bombers. The odds against the RAF were huge. Dowding knew that he could not take on the Luftwaffe every time it came over the channel. So when the Germans began hitting British shipping, he did nothing. Instead, he would only use the RAF to stop the Luftwaffe from establishing the air supremacy needed for invasion. So he would only take on its big attacks. To help him, the British had one crucial innovation: radar. By the 1930s, scientists in both Britain and Germany knew that objects well beyond human sight could be detected by bouncing radio pulses off them and measuring the time it took for the signals to return. In Britain, a team of scientists led by Robert Watson Watt began developing radar as a means of detecting approaching aircraft at long range. Their work was seized upon by Dowding. He made radar the core of the world's first integrated air defense system. Known as Chain Home, this was a string of 21 300-foot tall radar masts sited along the south and east coasts of Britain. These could pick up aircraft at a range of 120 miles and give their distance, direction, height, and numbers. The information would be passed back to RAF Fighter Command's headquarters at Bentley Priory, just outside London. There, it would be assessed, and warning of an impending raid passed to Fighter Command's operations unit.
Moonshine 1-4, Sky Blue, takes target 1, channel G George. Roger.
Controllers would then alert the nearest RAF airfields and scramble the necessary number of fighters. The question was, would radar make up for Germany's massive superiority in numbers? The stage was now set for what would become known as the Battle of Britain. Since June the 10th, 1940, the German Luftwaffe had been battering British shipping in the English Channel. The Luftwaffe's commander, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, was determined to lure the British Air Force into combat. But Britain's Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding refused to take the bait. He used his fighters sparingly, knowing that the real battle was still to come. As this first phase of the Battle of Britain began, the Luftwaffe had a massive superiority in numbers. It had 1,100 single-engine fighters available, the Royal Air Force's 700. Almost all the German fighters were the excellent necessary.
Damn it, I couldn't get around the corner!
Speed of around 350 miles an hour. About two-thirds of the British fighters were Hawker Hurricanes, slower than the 109s but more agile. The remainder were Supermarine Spitfires, with a top speed similar to the 109s.
Who the fuck was guarding that, you suck?
For their assault, the Germans had over 1,300 medium bombers, Dornier Do-17s, Heinkel HE-111s, and Junkers Ju-88s, each carrying about 4,000 pounds of bombs. Göring selected August the 13th as Adlertag.
Let him cook now.
For the start of his main assault.
Let him cook now. I said let him cook.
His aim was to destroy RAF fighters in the air, and the RAF's airfields and Britain's aircraft factories. Softening up attacks were made the day before. These concentrated on the airfields and the radar towers along the south coast. One station on the Isle of Wight was put out of action, and several were damaged, but these were working again within hours. Göring did not believe that radar had a significant role to play in the battle, and so these attacks were not.
Oh, I can't. I can't move.
Adlertag dawned cloudy, so the main assault was postponed until the afternoon. When it came, radar gave ample warning.
Oh, I just got double counted.
Did he just get a clap? That's fucked.
It just killed 2 people. And one go.
Nonetheless, most of the RAF airfields in the south were hammered.
One CS or something.
But by the end of the day, none had been put out of action. The Luftwaffe lost 46 aircraft.
Discover the past with exclusive military history documentaries and ad-free podcasts presented by world-renowned historians, all on History Hit. Watch them on your smart TV or on the go with your mobile device. Download the app now to watch everything, from the gripping story of the Band of Brothers to operate...
Died away, some 90 German aircraft had been shot down for the loss of 42 British fighters. The battle continued with equal ferocity for the next few days. Both sides became increasingly exhausted. Dowding tried to rotate his pilots to rest them, but he simply did not have enough.
GG team.
Many were
GG team, we'll get them next time. Let's go, guys. GG team, we'll get them next time. wrong tab. It didn't even go.
Okay, guys, I swear I didn't search for any of these. They're just ads.
Yeah. Sure you didn't.
This video was made possible by Honey. Install now for free using the link below and start saving money when you shop online.
Of us.
God,
We're
so
all
cooked.
PC players.
After the Third and Fourth Coalition Wars, Napoleon had decisively defeated all three
got
of his
that,
main
little
rivals
nigga.
on the continent, and he was now undoubtedly the
Oh,
master
dude,
of
chill
Europe.
out.
After the Battle of Friedland, his enemies sued for peace, and they all met on a raft on a river for an
That's
exchange.
the latest
They had
excuse
been fighting for the past
to tell
4 years,
someone to give
but
them
now
money than you.
Napoleon
To say
and
that they
them
got mad.
surprisingly got along
That's-
like a house on fire. They laughed together and chatted long into the night. They kissed.
How's that guy not dead to the fire?
And Napoleon
Huh?
even told his wife that if Alexander were a woman, I would make him my mistress. Kind of a weird thing to say to your wife, Napoleon. In the end, they came to an amicable agreement. Russia would lose barely any land, and in return, they'd join France against the UK and invade Sweden. Win-win. On the other hand, Frederick William III was sidelined, and Prussia lost an enormous amount of territory to French client states. Only the UK remained as the last major threat to
Shit.
Napoleon, and they continued to be a big thorn in his side, constantly funding his enemies and using their powerful leader to wreak havoc on French trade and business. But what could Napoleon do? The British were safe across the channel. Well, he said, if I can't fight you with guns, I'll fight you with money. Earlier in 1806, Napoleon had announced the Continental System, a total shutoff of the UK from continental trade. No one in Europe was to trade with Britain, and Napoleon hoped that by hitting their economy, he could force them to negotiate. The British economy did take a hit, and they responded in their typical fashion by going to Copenhagen and pulling a bunch of stuff out. But in general, the British managed to stay afloat by simply increasing their trade with other parts of the world. Many neutral countries found themselves stuck between a rock and a hard place as the two European superpowers demanded to cease trade with the enemy.
My God.
The French, or else I'll come burn down the White House. What? This is gonna wreck my economy. I need to start saving money. How the heck am I gonna start saving money? Yeah, that's right, you know where this is going. Do you like shopping in store? Of course not. Then you'd have to get up and use your legs. Gross. Well, what if I told you you could save money doing your shopping from the comfort of your own outhouse, allowing you to upgrade your outhouse to a porta potty? Go you. Honey is a free browser extension that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it
Chat,
can
what
find
if I
to
can
your
join the
cart.
other team?
Here I am buying 12 liters of hair gel so I can look my best. I just click this button and Jiminy Crickets. Honey stepped in and helped me save 40 bucks. Honey is completely free and has found over 65 years over $403,000 in savings so far. So seriously, why haven't you added it to your browser yet, you dingus? Click on the link below. joinhoney.com/oversimplify and you can get honey for free in 2 easy clicks. That's joinhoney.com/oversimplify to start saving money on your online shopping.
I heard nothing of what you said.
Oh yeah, making peace with the Russians,
Oh, yeah.
a continental blockade, and blowing up Copenhagen. Sick of being blown up for doing almost nothing, and under significant pressure from Napoleon, the Danish officially sided with France. But Napoleon's blockade had the biggest effect on continental Europe, who were now cut off from a major trading partner, one that controlled the seas and held a rich, growing empire. And a lot of countries didn't fully comply. Portugal, a traditional British ally, refused to take part. No problem. Napoleon sent an army and invaded. But it wasn't just Portugal. Many of Napoleon's allies were also suspect. Your Majesty, it seems that Spain isn't properly enforcing the blockade. Why not? Well, it appears they've been trying to find a way out of being your ally since they lost their fleet at Trafalgar.
Bombs like that,
What is
wow.
with these people? It's almost like everyone's only pretending to be my ally because they know otherwise I'd beat them up. Do I even have any real friends? Are you my friend here? Say yes or I'll slap you. Napoleon had come to mistrust his ally to the south, and in particular, Napoleon thought the Spanish royal family were an incompetent mess. All right, Carlos, you've got to get it together. How can I trust you? All you do is go hunting. Meanwhile, you
Bombs like
also
that,
this is
terror.
nobody who dislikes who you run the country, and you seem to be the only person in the universe who doesn't realize he's boinking your wife. And what's worse, who the heck are you? I'm the king's son. I just overthrew my dad. So, actually, now I'm the king. You people are the biggest cluster of shameless, narcissistic idiots and all around just the worst people I've ever met. Here, have a kid's choice award. French forces, many having conveniently already entered Spain to invade Portugal, occupied Spanish forts, and Napoleon invited the Spanish royals to France to help mediate their differences. All right, we're here with the royal family family of Spain. So, Fernando, you've been accused of plotting against your father and violating the Spanish crown. What do you have to say for yourself? Well, Napoleon, I got to think well, I've got the test results right here. Fernando, in the case of the Spanish throne, you are not. And Carlos, you are also not the king. I'm the king! Actually, Napoleon made his brother the king, but for all intents and purposes, Spain was now his puppet. He expected the Spanish people to be a popular royal family. Imagine his surprise when it turned out that people don't really like to be subjugated by a foreign power, least of all one who had previously attacked the Catholic Church. And so the people of Spain revolted. Brutal fighting broke out as bands of armed Spaniards ambushed French troops across the kingdom, and vicious atrocities were committed on both sides. In addition to fighting the regular Spanish and Portuguese forces, the French had to contend with tens of thousands of guerrilla fighters throughout the Spanish countryside. The British even took the opportunity to land an army led by the future Duke of Wellington. And now, British forces were defeating French ones on land. Napoleon briefly went to Spain in person, and he did drive back the Allied armies. But before long, his attention was needed elsewhere. The whole thing became a nightmare for the emperor. He excelled at traditional warfare, but this was something more akin to Napoleon's Vietnam. The whole conflict would keep hundreds of thousands of French soldiers and resources bogged down for years. Napoleon was never able to break the will of the Spanish people, and this problem weakened his position in Europe. Hey, Francis, want to go to war with Napoleon again? Why don't know, Britain? He's already won 3 times. I'll give you a bazillion pounds. Well, okay. Seeing that Napoleon was now caught up in Spain, and with some British funding, Austria decided maybe, just maybe, this time, they'd have a chance. So did they? No. Napoleon defeated them in just 4 months. It was quick, but it wasn't exactly easy. The Austrians had been watching Napoleon and learning, and they had made some reforms, while Napoleon, after years of war, was increasingly having to rely on inexperienced conscripts. So this time, the Austrians gave him a run for his money. The Fifth Coalition saw some of the bloodiest battles to date, including Napoleon's first major defeat, and when he did finally defeat the Austrians at the Battle of Wagram, it was a very costly victory. Still, Napoleon had yet again kicked Francis's butt, and as part of the peace terms, Austria lost a bunch more land. Not long after, however, Napoleon and Francis came to another agreement. It was decided that Napoleon would marry Francis's young daughter. But wait, doesn't Napoleon already have a wife? Well, yes, he did. Josephine and Napoleon had become quite fond of one another, but now that Napoleon was playing the monarch game, he needed a male heir, and his aging wife wasn't giving him one, so it was out with the old and in with the new. At least he didn't behead anyone. For Austria, they felt that if Napoleon was going to keep on winning, they may as well be on his side. So through the marriage, Napoleon got an alliance with Austria, and a beautiful between the failing blockade against Spain, the ongoing war in Spain, and now his recent struggles in Austria. Cracks in Napoleon's invincibility were beginning to show. But still, look at this map. So blue, so beautiful. Even Sweden, after being pulverized by Russia, overthrew their king, and after an interesting chain of events, ended up putting one of Napoleon's own marshals in charge. Marshal Bernadotte took the name Karl Johan and became Crown Prince of Sweden after agreeing to join Napoleon's continental system. For now, Sweden was Team France. Napoleon was on top of the world. He had won an endless string of victories. All he had to do now was sit back and not make any major miscalculations that could completely turn the tide of war. So let's see what comes next. France's alliance with Russia was a terrifying prospect. Together, the two could have been unstoppable. But unfortunately, the alliance didn't last. The Russians felt they weren't getting a fair deal. Napoleon's Duchy of Warsaw right on their doorstep was a bit of an insult. And then their economy began to tank because of Napoleon's British blockade. And eventually, they began to open up trade. Your Majesty, it seems Alexander is no longer abiding by the continental system and has begun trading with the British. Alexander? He kissed them. Kissed you? You wouldn't get it, Pierre. No one would ever kiss you. The security of Napoleon's empire depended on removing the British threat, and he wasn't happy with Russia's backdoor shenanigans. And so in 1812, Napoleon decided to go to war. He gathered together the most massive army Europe had ever seen, made up of troops from every corner of his empire, and he prepared to invade. Okay, it looks like General, I need ideas. We could stand and fight. No, that's stupid. You're stupid. We could run away. You're a star. You'll remember Napoleon's tactics relied on astonishing speed to outmaneuver his enemy and force a quick, decisive battle. Well, I've got 2 words for you. Scorched earth. If his opponent retreated while scorching the earth, his men couldn't live off the land. And if his men couldn't live off the land, he needed his supply trains. And if he needed his supply trains, he couldn't move quickly. And if he couldn't move quickly, he couldn't outmaneuver his enemy. And if he couldn't outmaneuver his enemy, I think you get the point. Napoleon launched his invasion and hoped for a quick battle. But all he could do was try to catch the retreating Russians while moving deeper and deeper into hostile territory. As he went, the horribly hot sun devastated
Dude, this
his army.
guy!
His men died. Exhaustion and disease. Supplies began to run out, and his men began to starve. Many deserted, and still the Russians continued to retreat. Numerous times, Napoleon considered turning back, but that little voice in his head kept on telling him, keep going, just a little further. And don't worry, you're definitely average high school for the time. He knew about the Russians at Smolensk, but it was his birthday, so he had a party instead. When he finally reached Moscow, he predicted the Russians wouldn't be willing to give up such a historic and holy city without a fight. And he was right. The Russians finally turned to face him for the single deadliest day of the Napoleonic Wars, the Battle of Borodino. The Russians fought valiantly, and as he got older, Napoleon's battle tactics seemed to become a little less refined and a little more run straight at the enemy, try not to die. He launched a full frontal assault at the Russian defenses, and as a result, the death toll was colossal. The Russians eventually decided to retreat, leaving Moscow to fall into Napoleon's hands. Quick, the French are taking the city. Release all these prisoners immediately, and tell them to burn to the ground! Well, Jimmy the Arsonist, you are not going to believe your luck. Moscow went up in flames, and as Napoleon entered, he wouldn't be able to stay there very long. But he had just defeated the Russian army and taken their most beloved city. In his mind, he had won. So he sent Tsar Alexander in St. Petersburg a letter. Your Imperial Majesty, Napoleon requests your surrender. How shall I respond? You shan't, Dmitri. Ever. But, Your Majesty, it will be winter soon. The French forces are stuck 500 miles into Russian territory with dwindling supplies. If we don't say anything, well, then they'll all die. Oh! After waiting for a response for about a month, the first snow of winter began to fall, and Napoleon sensed the catastrophe that was about to unfold. He decided their only choice now was to get out. And that's when it happened. It got cold. Stupid cold. His glorious invasion had just become a race for survival. As the Russians realized the French were fleeing for their lives, they began to close in on their supply line. Men froze to death, their horses as well. There was starvation and disease. The injured and dying could only be left by the side of the road, as it was too slow to try to carry them. And all along the way, the dreaded Russian Cossacks stalked the bleeding French army, and every now and then swept in for a quick attack. Napoleon, fearing capture, kept a vial of poison around his neck. At one point, the Russian armies nearly trapped him against the Berezina River, but a little Napoleon cleverness gave him the old Geoffrey juke, tricking them into thinking he was going south and then escaping across rapidly built pontoon bridges to the north. When the Russians realized where he was and began to close in, the French burned the bridges before everyone could cross. Hundreds drowned, and thousands were captured. At this point, Napoleon got wind of plots against him forming in Paris, so he abandoned his men and went back to France. The remaining French stragglers made it across the border. It's been estimated over 600,000 men went into Russia. Less than 100,000 returned. Napoleon was now in a very precarious situation. His army had just been obliterated, and the other European leaders smelled blood. Here was an opportunity to take advantage of a weakened Napoleon, regain territory and influence, and liberate Europe from his dirty French paws. And so, they began to turn. Prussia soon broke their alliance and switched sides, while Austria declared neutrality. Even Sweden, led by one of Napoleon's own monarchs, joined the Allies, partly due to Napoleon's earlier invasion of Swedish Pomerania. The War of the Sixth Coalition had begun. The coalition forces had been reforming their armies, and they were now much better. And the UK had also significantly amped up its financial aid to its continental allies. Their armies quickly advanced through Poland and into Germany. In Paris, Napoleon was understandably freaking out. He needed to put together a new army fast, and he called up over 100,000 new conscripts, mostly teenagers. He also put his factories into overdrive, and he was like, you, make more rifles. You, build new cannons. You, make more horses. I don't make horses. Then who makes horses? Horses make horses. Explain how. Well, when a daddy horse and a mommy horse love each other very much. Yes, go on. Well, then the daddy horse... I'm sorry, Napoleon. You're 43. I thought you'd know this stuff. Don't touch me. I'm gonna be sick. As it turned out, Napoleon's lack of horses would take the biggest toll on his army, since his tactics relied on speed, maneuverability, and destruction. When he took the fight to the Allies in 1813, he did defeat them and sent them running. But lacking cavalry, he was unable to effectively pursue and destroy. He needed horses. For the Allies, being defeated in battle by a man who had experienced conscripts was concerning. So both sides were like, hold up, time out. The Allies were somewhat cornered, and had Napoleon kept going, it's possible he could have won. But instead he agreed to a brief truce, with the Austrians mediating between the two sides. When Austria demanded Napoleon make major concessions, Napoleon told them to shove it. Having had their terms rejected, Austria felt now they were justified in saying, well, we tried, and they joined the coalition. Okay everyone, look at us. The boys are back together. But Napoleon is still dangerous, so we need a plan. Any ideas? Ooh, I know. No, forget it. That's stupid. Oh, no. I've got it! We run away. Genius. He's a genius. The plan was as follows. Wherever Napoleon advanced, whoever he advanced on would avoid battle, allowing the others to sweep in from the sides and attack the French marshals guarding his flanks. Essentially, the plan was, don't try to fight Napoleon. And this plan worked tremendously. The Allies scored a number of victories that saw Napoleon move back to the city of Leipzig.